There are some places on this earth that seem to be cursed. Places where the weight of human tragedy is so immense, so concentrated, that it seems to have seeped into the very foundations of the building. They are locations that have absorbed the pain, the despair, the madness, and the violence that has occurred within their walls, until the very bricks and mortar seem to exude a sense of profound, lingering malevolence. These are places that cease to be mere backdrops for a story. They become characters in their own right, dark, brooding stages upon which the most disturbing dramas of human life are destined to play out, again and again. And perhaps no place in America is more deserving of this grim reputation than a decaying Grand Hotel in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. A place with a history so dark, so saturated with death, desperation, and despair, that its name has become a byword for the macabre. This is the Cecil Hotel. For nearly a century, the Cecil has been a magnet for the lost and the damned, a last resort for the desperate souls adrift in the City of Angels. It has been the site of countless suicides, a place where people have leaped from windows with such regularity that it became a grim local joke. It has been a temporary home for some of the most notorious serial killers in American history, men like Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, who would reportedly return to his blood-spattered room at the Cecil after a night of horrific violence, unnoticed by anyone. It was a haven for Jack Unterweger, the Austrian serial killer who preyed on sex workers, using the Cecil as his base of operations. It is a place where the veil between the world of the living and the world of the dead feels terrifyingly, almost transparently thin. And in the winter of 2013, this dark stage would become the setting for a new kind of mystery, a tragedy for the digital age, a case that would capture the morbid imagination of the entire world and turn an army of internet sleuths into obsessive, globe-spanning investigators. This is the story of a young Canadian student named Elisa Lam. She was a traveler, a poet, a blogger, a dreamer, who checked into the Cecil Hotel looking for adventure, and found something else entirely. Her story culminates not just in an unexplained death, but in a discovery so gruesome it beggars belief, and in a piece of evidence so bizarre, so profoundly unsettling, that it has become one of the most iconic and haunting video clips in the history of the internet. We are talking, of course, about the elevator video. For minutes of grainy, silent, time-stamped footage that appears to document the final, inexplicable moments of a young woman's life as she is tormented by an unseen force. A chilling ballet of fear and confusion that has been analyzed, debated, and deconstructed more than almost any other piece of found footage. Tonight, we will check into the Cecil. We will walk its haunted hallways. We will ride its fateful elevator. We will climb to its foreboding, waterlogged rooftop. We will conduct a deep, exhaustive, and unflinching analysis of the case of Elisa Lam, examining not just the evidence of her death, but the evidence of her life. We will delve into her own words, her own fears, and her own dreams. We will scrutinize the official narrative and the mountain of alternative theories that have sprung up in its place. Was her death a tragic accident, the heartbreaking result of a troubled mind spiraling out of control in a place that amplifies despair? Or was she a victim of something far more sinister, a human predator who knew the hotel's dark secrets, or perhaps even a supernatural force that resides in the decaying grandeur of the Cecil Hotel itself? To truly understand the mystery, we must first understand the woman at its center. Elisa Lam was not just a victim in a viral video. She was a vibrant, complex, and deeply relatable young woman, a fact that is often lost in the sensationalism of her case. Born in Vancouver, British Columbia, to immigrant parents from Hong Kong, she was a 21-year-old student at the prestigious University of British Columbia. She was, by all accounts, intelligent and ambitious, but her true passion seemed to be writing. She maintained a public blog on Tumblr, which she called Ether Fields. In the years since her death, this blog has become a heartbreaking digital archive, a ghost in the machine that allows us to see the world through her eyes, to hear her voice, and to understand the inner workings of her mind. Her blog reveals a young woman who was witty, introspective, and full of a yearning for connection and adventure. She wrote about her love for high fashion, for art, for literature. She was a fan of authors like Chuck Palahniuk and David Foster Wallace, writers known for their explorations of alienation and the darker side of modern life. She posted pictures of runway models next to quotes about existential angst. She was, in many ways, a quintessential millennial, fluent in the language of the internet, using it as a canvas to construct her identity and to reach out to a world she often felt disconnected from. But her blog was not just a collection of fashion photos and literary quotes. It was also a place of raw, unflinching, and sometimes brutal honesty about her own struggles. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, a heavy burden for anyone to bear, let alone a young woman navigating the pressures of university and young adulthood. She wrote openly about her battles with her mental health, the feelings of apathy and listlessness, the crushing weight of anxiety, and the constant, exhausting struggle to feel normal. In one post, she wrote, "It is a vicious cycle of wanting to be happy, but not feeling it." In another, she lamented, "I am so tired, so very tired of all of this." She described her relapses, her struggles with medication, and the profound sense of alienation that her illness caused. Her blog is a powerful, poignant, and deeply human portrait of a young mind grappling with both the beauty and the pain of existence. It was this desire for new experiences, perhaps as a way to combat her own internal struggles, to prove to herself that she could be independent and adventurous, that led her to embark on a solo trip across the west coast of the United States in January of 2013. She called it her West Coast Tour. It was a journey of self-discovery. She took an Amtrak train from Vancouver, documenting her travels on her blog. She visited San Diego, where she went to the zoo and posted pictures of the animals. She wrote about the feeling of being a tourist, a stranger in a strange land. She then traveled north to Los Angeles. It was the next stop on her journey. Her plan was to continue on to Santa Cruz, a place she was particularly excited about, and then to San Francisco. On January 26, 2013, she checked into the Cecil Hotel. Why the Cecil? To a young, budget-conscious solo traveler, it was a logical, if fateful, choice. It was centrally located in downtown LA, and most importantly, it was cheap. The hotel, in an effort to rebrand itself and appeal to a younger, international crowd, had recently opened a hostel-style wing called Stay on Main, which offered both private rooms and dorm-style shared rooms at a fraction of the cost of other hotels in the area. It's almost certain that Elisa, an avid user of travel blogs and review sites, was unaware of the hotel's gruesome, almost comically dark, history. She was probably just looking for an affordable and convenient place to stay in the city of dreams. She initially checked into a shared, fifth-floor hostel room, room 506. But after 2 days, her roommates reportedly complained to management about her odd behavior, and she was moved to a private room of her own, room 502, on the same floor. The nature of this odd behavior has never been publicly detailed, but it is the first small sign that something may have been amiss. For the first few days of her stay, however, everything seemed to be proceeding as planned. She was in regular, daily contact with her parents back in Vancouver, checking in with them every single day. She was seen in the lobby of the hotel, using the internet on the public computers. She ventured out into the city. She visited the Last Bookstore, a famous independent bookstore in downtown LA, where she bought books and records as gifts for her family. A photo taken by a bookstore employee shows her smiling, holding her bag of purchases, looking every bit the happy, excited tourist. She was updating her blog, posting pictures and observations about her travels. She wrote about feeling a little lonely, but also about the thrill of being on her own. And then, on January 31, 2013, the communication stopped. She failed to make her daily call home to her parents. This was immediately and intensely alarming. It was completely out of character for the responsible and family-oriented young woman. Her parents knew with a certainty that only a parent can feel that something was terribly wrong. They tried calling her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. They contacted the Los Angeles Police Department and reported their daughter missing. The LAPD began their investigation. They went to the Cecil Hotel. They obtained a key and searched her private room, room 502. Her belongings, her wallet, her identification, her phone, her laptop, her prescription medications, the books she had just bought were all there, neatly arranged. There was no sign of a struggle, no overturned furniture, no indication of foul play. She had simply walked out of her room and vanished, leaving all the essential tools of modern life behind. Hotel staff and other guests were questioned. A few remembered seeing her, a quiet young Asian woman, but no one could provide any useful information about her state of mind or her recent activities. The police conducted a search of the hotel, including the rooftop, though the thoroughness of this initial search would later be called into question. They used tracker dogs, but the dogs were reportedly unable to pick up a clear scent trail leading out of the hotel. It was as if she had entered the Cecil and never left. For 2 weeks, the case went nowhere. It was a frustrating and heartbreaking dead end. Elisa Lam had disappeared without a trace from the middle of a massive, 14-story, 700-room hotel. And then, on February 13th, the LAPD, in a desperate attempt to generate new leads from the public, decided to release a piece of evidence. It was a video that would transform this case from a standard, sad missing person investigation into a global viral phenomenon, a modern-day urban legend. This is the elevator video. It is 4 minutes and 2 seconds of low-resolution, time-stamped security footage, taken from a camera positioned in the back corner of one of the Cecil's elevators. It was recorded on February 1st, the day she was last believed to have been seen alive. The video is silent, which only amplifies its deeply unsettling, dreamlike power. The video begins at approximately 1:25 a.m. The elevator doors slide open, and Elisa, dressed in a red, unzipped hoodie over a gray t-shirt, black shorts and sandals, steps in from the right. She moves with a casual, deliberate air. She leans forward and presses a series of buttons on the control panel. She then steps back into the corner of the elevator, near the camera, and waits, and waits. The doors, which should have closed almost immediately, remain open. After about 20 seconds of waiting, she takes a hesitant step forward. She leans out of the elevator, her head cautiously peeking into the hallway, first to her left, then to her right. She seems to be looking for someone, or perhaps, hiding from someone. She then quickly steps back into the elevator, pressing herself flat against the wall, as if trying to make herself as small as possible, to hide in the blind spot from whatever might be in the hallway. Again, the doors do not close. The sense of wrongness deepens. She steps forward again, this time planting one foot in the hallway. She looks out again, then snaps her head back into the elevator, as if startled. She then steps completely out of the elevator into the hallway. For a moment, she is almost out of the camera's view. She sidesteps back and forth, a strange, almost choreographed movement. And then, her behavior becomes truly, profoundly bizarre. Standing in the hallway, she begins to gesture with her hands. Her arms are bent at the elbows, her fingers splayed and twisting. She moves her hands as if she is counting, or casting a spell, or trying to explain something complex to an invisible audience. She seems to be talking to someone or something that is just out of the camera's view. Her body language is a strange, unreadable mixture of fear, playfulness, and profound confusion. Is she having a conversation? Is she playing a strange game of peekaboo? Is she pleading with someone? Or is she experiencing a profound hallucination? She steps back into the elevator one last time, again pressing multiple buttons on the control panel with a sweeping motion of her hand. Still, the doors remain stubbornly, unnaturally, open. Finally, as if giving up on the malfunctioning elevator, she steps out into the hallway and walks off to the left, her arms gesturing in that same strange, fluid way, before she disappears from the camera's frame for the final time. A few seconds later, after she is gone, the elevator doors finally, inexplicably, close. They open again on another floor, then close. They open on yet another floor, then close. They open one last time, revealing an empty hallway, before the video ends, leaving the viewer in a state of deep, unresolved dread. The release of this video had an explosive global effect. It was not just a piece of evidence. It was a perfectly crafted piece of viral horror. It was viewed millions of times within days. It was shared, reposted, and analyzed on every social media platform imaginable. It didn't look like an ordinary security video. It looked like a scene from a found-footage horror film like The Blair Witch Project, or a Japanese horror movie like Dark Water. Who was she hiding from? Who was she talking to? Why were her movements so strange and unnatural? And the central, maddening question, why wouldn't the elevator doors close? The video turned thousands of people around the world into armchair detectives. The internet sleuths of forums like Reddit and web sleuths descended on the case with a ferocious intensity. They analyzed the video frame by frame. They developed a host of theories, from the logical to the wildly paranormal. Some, using video editing software, claimed the video had been deliberately tampered with by the police or the hotel. They pointed to the fact that the timestamp in the corner is partially obscured for much of the video. They claimed that the video appears to have been slowed down by about 30%, and that nearly a minute of footage seems to be missing from the middle. If a minute was removed, what did it show? Did it show another person entering the frame? Did it show something that would have changed the entire complexion of the case? Others claimed they could see the ghostly reflection of another person in the elevator's mirrored panels. Some even claimed that they could see a strange, non-human foot, or the edge of a shoe, stepping into the frame for a split second, suggesting someone else was there, just out of sight. The internet became a cauldron of speculation and conspiracy. Was this clear evidence of a psychotic episode? A young woman's mind breaking down in real time? Was she being pursued by a real person? A predator who was stalking her in the hallways of the Cecil? Or, given the hotel's dark and sordid history, was she interacting with a ghost, a paranormal entity that only she could see? The elevator video was a perfect, terrifying Rorschach test, and everyone saw something different in its grainy, silent frames. While the internet was consumed by the virtual ghost story of the elevator video, the real-world situation at the Cecil Hotel was taking a grim and deeply ironic turn. A few days after the video was released, guests at the hotel began to complain. They reported that the water pressure in their rooms was unusually low. They said the water coming from the taps and the showers tasted strange, that it had a sweet, almost sickening flavor. And, most disturbingly, They reported that it had an unusual, dark, almost black color when it first came out of the faucet. On the morning of February 19, 2013, 19 days after Elisa was last seen, a hotel maintenance worker named Santiago Lopez was sent to the roof to investigate the source of the persistent water complaints. The roof of the Cecil Hotel was a restricted area. There were two main access points: a locked door that was connected to an alarm system, and a fire escape that led up the side of the building. The police would later admit that the alarm system was not always functioning, and that it was not particularly difficult for someone to access the roof if they were determined. On the roof were 4 large, cylindrical water cisterns, about 10 feet tall and 4 feet in diameter. These massive tanks held the hotel's water supply, the very water that guests had been drinking, bathing in, and brushing their teeth with for over 2 weeks. Lopez, the maintenance worker, noticed that the main hatch on one of the 4 water tanks was open. This was unusual. He fetched a ladder, propped it against the side of the massive tank, and climbed up to look inside. He peered down into the dark, murky water, and there, floating face up, was the naked body of a young woman. Her skin was pale and bloated. Her hair floated around her head like a dark halo. It was Elisa Lam. The discovery was horrifying on multiple levels. It answered the question of where she was, but it opened up a Pandora's box of new, even more baffling and physically revolting questions. How did she get up to the supposedly locked roof? How did a small woman, alone, get inside a 10-foot-tall water tank? The circular hatches on these tanks were made of heavy metal. They were incredibly heavy, difficult for even a grown man to open from the outside, and nearly impossible to close from the inside. And the most disturbing question of all: why was she naked? Her clothes, the same red hoodie and gray t-shirt she was wearing in the now infamous elevator video, were found in the water beside her, coated in a strange, sandy substance. Her room key and her watch were also at the bottom of the tank. There was no suicide note. The official autopsy, conducted by the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office, only deepened the mystery for those seeking a simple answer. The coroner found no evidence of physical trauma, no signs of sexual assault, no bruises, no cuts, no defensive wounds that would indicate a struggle. A rape kit was performed. The results were negative. Toxicology tests were conducted on her blood. They found trace amounts of her prescription medications for bipolar disorder: Wellbutrin, Lamictal, Seroquel. The levels indicated that she had either been undermedicating or had possibly stopped taking her medication altogether in the days leading up to her death. There were no illegal drugs and no alcohol in her system. The official cause of death was listed as accidental drowning, with her bipolar disorder listed as a significant condition. The case was officially closed. The story, according to the LAPD and the coroner's office, was a simple, if bizarre, tragedy. Elisa Lam, in the midst of a severe manic bipolar episode, had suffered a psychotic break. She was experiencing hallucinations and paranoia. In her delusional state, believing she was being pursued, she had sought a place to hide. She had made her way to the roof, climbed into the water tank to escape her imagined pursuers, and had tragically drowned, perhaps unable to get out, or succumbing to hypothermia in the cold water. Her strange behavior in the elevator video was seen as clear evidence of her deteriorating mental state. The open hatch, her nakedness, which could be explained by paradoxical undressing, a known phenomenon in cases of hypothermia where the victim feels a sensation of being hot and removes their clothing. It could all be explained by a mind that was no longer tethered to reality. This is the official narrative. It is neat, it is tragic, and it is, for many, completely and utterly unsatisfying. The army of internet sleuths and independent researchers refused to accept it. For them, the official story was a cover-up, a simplistic explanation for a case that was filled with high strangeness and too many unanswered questions. Let's conduct our own deep case analysis of the problems with the official story and the alternative theories that have emerged. First, let's revisit the central piece of evidence, the elevator video. The theory that this was simply a psychotic episode has some merit. Bipolar disorder, particularly in a manic phase, can cause hallucinations and paranoia. Her strange gestures could have been her reacting to things that only she could see. Her pressing all the buttons on the panel could be a sign of disorganized thinking. But what about the elevator door? Why didn't it close for so long? Some have suggested that a specific button, the door hold button, was pressed, which would keep the door open for 2 minutes. This is a plausible technical explanation. But others maintain that the only way for the door to stay open that long is if someone or something was physically obstructing the door sensor from outside, just out of the camera's view. And what about the allegations of video tampering? The theory that the video was edited to remove a crucial minute of footage is a powerful one. If a minute was removed, what did it show? Did it show another person? Did it show something that would have changed the entire complexion of the case? The LAPD has never officially commented on these allegations, leaving the door open to speculation and conspiracy. Second, there is the massive, almost insurmountable problem of the roof and the water tank. The roof was supposed to be a secure, alarmed area. How did she get up there without setting off an alarm or being seen by hotel staff? The police have stated that there are multiple ways to the roof, including a fire escape, and that the alarm system was not always reliable. But it still requires a significant leap of faith to believe that a young woman in a distressed, psychotic state could navigate her way to the roof undetected. And then there is the tank itself. These are massive industrial water cisterns. They are 10 feet tall with smooth, straight sides. There is no permanent ladder on the outside of the tanks. The maintenance worker had to bring his own ladder to access the top. How did a small woman like Elisa, who was only 5 feet 4 inches, manage to climb to the top of a 10-foot tank? And once there, how did she, by herself, lift the incredibly heavy 20-pound metal hatch? And if she got in voluntarily, how did she manage to close the heavy hatch from the inside, as the maintenance worker claimed to have found it? The logistics of getting into that tank are, for many, the biggest hole in the accidental death theory. It seems to require a level of strength, coordination, and problem-solving ability that a person in a severe psychotic state might not possess. This leads us to the most prominent alternative theory: foul play. This theory posits that Elisa Lam was murdered. Someone, either a hotel guest or, more likely, an employee who knew the hotel's layout and how to bypass the security measures, stalked her, cornered her, and killed her. They then transported her body to the roof and dumped it in the water tank to hide the evidence and delay its discovery. This theory explains the logistical problems of getting into the tank. The killer would have had the strength to do it, and the knowledge of how to access the roof. It also explains her behavior in the elevator. She wasn't hiding from a ghost. She was hiding from a real person who was pursuing her. But this theory also has its own significant problems. The autopsy found no signs of a struggle. If she was attacked and murdered, where were the bruises, the cuts, the defensive wounds? And the toxicology report found no sedatives or date rape drugs in her system that would have rendered her helpless. If a killer was involved, they were a ghost, leaving no forensic trace of their presence on her body. This is where the dark history of the Cecil Hotel comes roaring back into the narrative, providing the fuel for the paranormal theories. Is it possible that the Cecil itself is a source of this darkness? The hotel has a legacy of death that is almost unparalleled. Is it possible that Elisa Lam, a person who was already in a psychologically vulnerable state due to her mental illness, was particularly susceptible to the malevolent energy that many believe clings to the Cecil's walls? Was her strange behavior in the elevator a conversation with a spirit? Did a ghostly entity torment her, drive her to the roof, and somehow compel her to enter the water tank? For many, particularly those inclined towards the supernatural, the Cecil Hotel is not just the setting for this tragedy. It is the perpetrator. There is also a bizarre and widely debunked theory that links Elisa's death to a tuberculosis outbreak that was occurring in the Skid Row area near the hotel at the time. The name of the test for this particular strain of TB? The LAM Elisa test. This coincidence was so striking that it led to a wild conspiracy theory that Elisa was a biological weapon carrier, or a mule for a new drug, and that she was eliminated to prevent the spread of a new plague or to silence her. This theory has no basis in fact, but its existence speaks to the human mind's desperate need to find patterns and create narratives, even where none exist. So where does the truth lie? Was the unexplained death of Elisa Lam the result of a tragic confluence of mental illness and terrible, unfortunate luck? A young woman, possibly off her medication, has a severe psychotic episode. Her paranoid delusions lead her to believe she is being chased. She seeks refuge in the most unlikely of places, the water tank on the roof, and through a feat of adrenaline-fueled strength, manages to get inside, only to find she cannot get out. She drowns, and her death occurs in a place that just happens to have a famously dark history, creating a perfect storm for speculation. This is the simplest explanation. It is the one favored by Occam's razor. Or was it something more? Was she the victim of a human monster who knew the hotel's secrets and used its decaying infrastructure to hide his crime? A crime so perfectly executed it left no trace? Or was she the latest victim of the hotel itself, the latest soul to be claimed by the malevolent energy of the Cecil? The case of Elisa Lam is a uniquely modern tragedy. It is a story that played out on her public blog, was fueled by a viral video, and was investigated by a global community of internet sleuths. It is a perfect storm of true crime, mental health awareness, and paranormal speculation. It is a story that has no easy answers, and that is precisely why it continues to haunt us. The elevator video is a silent movie that we can watch forever, but it will never tell us its secrets. And on the rooftop of the Cecil Hotel, 4 water tanks sit under the Los Angeles sky, one of which holds a story and a sorrow that we may never truly understand. Thank you for joining me on this deep, extended dive into the heartbreaking and deeply perplexing mystery of Elisa Lam. The questions in this case are profound and touch on the very nature of perception, reality, and the darkness that can lurk in both our minds and our world. I encourage you to share your own thoughts and theories in the comments below. If this exploration of the strange and the unsettling has captured your interest, please subscribe for more deep dives into the cases that defy easy explanation. Until next time, be safe, and be mindful of the darkness that can lurk in the most unexpected places.